There's nothing better than being right. For Momo Ayase, that's being right about ghosts and the supernatural. For Okarun, that's being right about aliens. The problem is, they're both right, and both the aliens and ghosts want to steal their genitals. Good morning, everyone. This is the base premise of Dandadan, an ongoing manga and anime series by Yukinobu Tatsu. With over 180 chapters at time of this video, and despite receiving one of the most stunning anime adaptations of the modern age, no one seems to be talking about it. Nobody cares. But I do. And I'm gonna make you care. There are going to be spoilers in this video, but I ask that you trust me and don't let that deter you. The true beauty and brilliance in Dandadan is not something that can be seen or appreciated with a general overlook. Rather than the specifics of individual plot points, that brilliance shines through in the art, the writing, the characters, and how all these things are balanced on the strings that interconnect them. Besides, who orders a meal without looking at the menu? You should know what you're getting yourself into. First, we need to set the foundation. Dandadan begins with a pop, right in the middle of series lead teenage girl Momo Ayase being beat up and dumped because she won't put out. Damn, boys suck, huh? Her friends scold her for even dating the guy in the first place, and Momo laments that she was only interested in him for his passing resemblance to famed Japanese action movie star Ken Takakura. Momo leaves the room and begins trudging down the halls when she catches a glimpse of someone being bullied. And just as one of the bullies is about to cause cerebral hemorrhaging by hurling a fist-sized magnet at the kid, Momo interjects. As a kid, where do you even get a magnet that big? Seeing a pretty girl in their line of fatal fire, they stop, and as they redirect their attention, so does Momo. She's barely made it down the hall before she's stopped by the bullying victim. This is Okarun, the second series lead. He says he knows what Momo's really into and the real reason for a girl like her to ever come talk to a guy like him. Aliens. He opens his magazine to show her what he's talking about, pointing to a section about the president's been to Mars. I want to point out that in the manga, it explicitly says and shows President Obama, like Barack Obama. In the anime, it's changed to a president of Japan, but canonically, Barack Obama has been to Mars in the Dandadan universe. Anyway, Momo laughs in his face because obviously aliens and all that are fake, and Okarun gets his feelings hurt, so Momo apologizes and says she doesn't believe in aliens, but, well, she does believe in ghosts. And Okarun laughs in her face because obviously there's no such thing as ghosts and spirits. So they make a bet on who's right, because there's nothing better than being right. Okarun goes to a world-famous cursed tunnel haunted by a malevolent spirit, and Momo, she goes to an abandoned hospital. As you may have guessed by now, they're both right. Okarun, in his deep dark tunnel of terrors, encounters the legendary yokai Turbo Granny, and is quickly bested in a foot race because a schoolboy cannot outrun a mythical demon. Momo encounters a group of business casual aliens called the Serpoians, and is quickly bested because a schoolgirl cannot overcome a highly advanced, self-replicating, spacefaring civilization. I will say firmly and directly to you, there's some weird attempted assault shit here that happens with Momo and the Serpoians. It's weird. We can acknowledge that it's weird, and it's essential to keep in mind that this isn't indicative of the rest of the series at all. But for a moment, it's weird. We'll talk more about that later. Anyway, so Okarun gets possessed by a Turbo Granny and inherits her panel-breaking supernatural powers, which they then use to teleport through Momo's phone and save her from the Serpoians. However, Turbo Granny is quickly bested because a possessed schoolboy is no match for a banana-seeking, universe-spanning civilization like the Serpoians. Seeing Okarun beat down like a dejected dog, Momo focuses deep inside herself and awakens her psychic powers, which she quickly uses to turn the tide. The Serpoians are quickly defeated, as horny aliens are no match for the power of teenage yearning. In the aftermath, Turbo Granny temporarily departs Okarun's body, but steals his schlong, declaring that if he wants his willy back, he's gonna have to nut up and come take it. I will say that in the very next chapter, it's revealed that his testicles are missing, so this is much more difficult than it initially sounds. Momo, meanwhile, is like, well, guess I have psychic powers now. She's just chill with it. She turns to Okarun and says, hey, nerd boy, what's your name? Ken Takakura, Okarun responds, and in the closing panel of the first chapter, a breeze blows across Momo's soul. That's right, we've only talked about the first chapter, of which there are over 180, and in the anime, we've only covered the first episode, of which there are fewer than 180, but hey, maybe someday. So where does Dandadan begin? Before Dandadan was Dandadan. Series creator, writer, and artist Yukinobu Tatsu got his start by doodling on the back of receipts when he worked overnights at a convenience store. Encouraged heavily by his manager, he pursued his art. He was a fan of the Gundam series, so he started by making 100 pages of the Gundam manga. He submitted it to a manga competition, and though he didn't win, his talent glimmered enough to catch the eyes of higher-ups who offered him a job as an assistant, allowing him to further refine his skills. Eventually, he was shuffled under the management of Shihei Lin, who was an important figure to keep in mind when discussing modern manga. Lin put Tatsu to work with Chainsaw Man series creator Tatsuki Fujimoto, where he worked alongside Tatsuya Endo and Yuji Kaku, the series creators of Spy Family and Hell's Paradise, respectively. It was like this bubbling cauldron of raw talent and possibility. The insane art of Chainsaw Man Part 1 begins to make a lot more sense when you identify the titans whose hands shaped it. All this time, Tatsu was throwing around concepts for what could be his big breakthrough series. He'd gotten a few one-shots and smaller series published, but nothing had really been a big success. After a particularly brutal streak of endless rejections and having his ideas dismissed almost disgustedly by upper management, Manager Lin gave young Tatsu the now famous advice to drop what he was doing and go read 100 shoujo manga. Shoujo, meaning young girl, the inverse of shonen, meaning young boy, and the main manga demographic. Read some romance, idiot! Learn about girls! That was basically the message. After Tatsu read what I can only imagine was an unhealthy, yet fulfilling, amount of Sailor Moon, he was still finding difficulty in founding a new series. He came up with several concepts, but still none received the approval from top management. Once again, Lin gave him guidance in the two words that planted the seed of Dandadan: draw freely. Don't focus on making a series, focus instead on making a thing. Tatsu recounts of these days that he would often draw from 10 a.m. to 5 a.m., a 19-hour shift, usually sleeping next to the copier. However, due to this unconventional work schedule, during the times he tried to sleep, other people would be working, and since the copier's noisy, it would keep him up. That sounds miserable! Also, someone should introduce him to earplugs. It's unclear when exactly that seed sprouted and the idea came into his mind, but the founding idea of Dandadan came from Tatsu viewing the 2016 Japanese film Sadako vs. Kayako, an ultimately anticlimactic and lackluster showdown between the protagonists of the early 2000s horror films The Ring and The Grudge. I was in my childhood at the time of their release, and my impression at the time was that The Ring was one of the scariest films to ever be conceived. I had a CRT television in my room, back then we just called them TVs, and after being in use for an extended period, shutting it off would leave a hazy glow that filled the glass and slowly faded. To my still developing brain, freshly braised with hot trauma after The Ring's 115-minute runtime, this glow meant that my TV was a portal to hell. The Wikipedia page lists Sadako vs. Kayako as a supernatural comedy horror film. A decent portion into the film, a priestess attempts to exorcise Sadako from a girl's body by chanting Harry Potter spells, and the absurdity of seeing that referenced made me chuckle. I turned to my fiancé and said, "What if that's the only time we laugh this whole movie?" And it was. The whole thing is up on YouTube subtitled in English if you want to watch it. To Tatsu, however, this hatched the idea of Ghost vs. Ghost, that would eventually mature into Dandadan. I mean, sure, I'm up for some ghost-on-ghost action, if you know what I mean. Tatsu started with the idea of Momo, and originally intended her to lead yet another battle shonen as a solo protagonist. Once again, rejected. It's only after adding in the character of Okarun and shifting the focus onto their relationship that everything clicked into place. The board approved Dandadan for serialization, and it's only been up from there, with the debut chapters breaking records for the amount of page views received. So what was it? Why did adding Okarun and his dynamic with Momo become a shining golden ball that the management absolutely couldn't say no to? I firmly believe it's in the way that Tatsu creates characters. From our very first encounter with this universe, we know who these characters are and what their general vibe is going to be. He's an absolute master at conveying things non-verbally, and though there is no shortage of styles with which characters' portraits will be stretched and exaggerated, all of them feel like they fit that character. When analyzing and conversing about characters in media, it's often easy to draw parallels between characters in differing series as an easy way to summarize them or give hints as to their role in the story. Like when watching One Punch Man, it's easy to think, hey, Saitama is just Goku, if Goku could beat anything in one punch. Or Gojo Satoru from Jujutsu Kaisen is just Goku, if he was a twink. Or even, hey, Yuko from Nichijou is just Goku if Goku was a small Japanese child. Within Dandadan, it's difficult to draw direct comparisons because each and every character feels unique. They've been written with more dimension and purpose than paper usually permits. They feel like people you know in real life, and have carried with you for some time. The closest thing to a comparison to be made is from the author themselves. Tatsu on more than one occasion has proclaimed how Momo is Superman. Literally, that's how he views her. She is the hero, her mere presence being enough to motivate others to stand up and fight, to do what's right. She's like if Goku was All Might, if All Might was a small Japanese schoolgirl, and My Hero Academia had better writing. Brash and loud, Momo is unapologetically herself, but she's also kind, considerate, and fiercely loyal. It's no mystery why her character is Tatsu's absolute favorite, to the unique degree that his favoritism has led to issues with deadlines. He quite often finds himself drawing and redrawing her ad nauseum when he feels he hasn't made her cute enough. We spend the majority of the time in Dandadan with Momo and usually experience things from her perspective. Okaroon is the inverted waveform of Momo, the introvert to her extrovert. He is much more shy and reserved. He has social anxiety. He has trouble with confrontation. Until it comes to Momo. If she's endangered, his affection empowers him, and through these feelings, there is no obstacle he cannot conquer. He's like if Goku was a shy emo boy and had no family. Also in the manga, but especially the anime, I haven't seen anyone talking about this, so I guess I might as well be the one to bring it up. Okaroon's golden balls are pretty big. Like, tumor-worthy. Big. This implies that Okaroon is packing some seriously proportionate pocket thunder. It's not an issue or anything, I just think it's funny. The Ken Takakura that Okaroon borrows his name from is of course a famed Japanese actor whose career spanned decades and the entire emotional spectrum. Though most of his more famous roles had him taking on entire Yakuza clans by himself, his tender, vulnerable performances allowed him to bring great depth to the shoes he filled. The line that Okaroon says to Momo that catches her heart's attention, "I am an awkward fellow, after all," doesn't actually come from any of Takakura's films. Instead, it comes from a series of humble ads for Nippon Life life insurance, where he admits his clumsiness as a person, but still assures the viewer and the audience that happiness is obtainable. He's like if Kazuma Kiryu was a shy Japanese child. A part of Okaroon's character I don't see mentioned that often is his loneliness. In the very first chapter, when he's fighting against the Serpoians, he screams out that ever since elementary school, he's looked to the skies and asked for UFOs to come. He didn't have any friends, so he was hopeful that if aliens existed, maybe they would come, and maybe they would want to be friends with him. But no matter how much he called, they never came. Humans bullied him, aliens ignored him. But Momo didn't. I see myself in Okaroon, and not just because in middle school I was deep into conspiracy theories, and I wore a shirt to school that simply said in block letters, "Bush lied, thousands died, the truth behind 9/11. One of the various staff members whose names and position I've forgotten, I only recall that she kinda looked like the Cynthia doll from Rugrats. You know the one. She stopped me in the hall between the math and English classrooms and asked me, "What's the shirt about?" I rambled something about how jet fuel can't melt steel beams, and Dick Cheney is the devil, and she did that glassy-eyed half nod and muttered a painfully feigned, "uh-huh," before quickly excusing herself from the encounter. I feel like Okaroon has quite a few experiences like that. Maybe the amount of myself that I see in Okaroon is enhanced or otherwise biased because factually, I once was also just a schoolboy. If you were to strip down Dandadan to its very core components, it would still be about the relationship of Momo and Okaroon, and their relationships to the makeshift family they assemble as the series progresses. It feels odd to say for a series which features such stellar combat sequences and art, but fighting really isn't the focus of Dandadan. Interpersonal relationships are. This has led many to say that Dandadan isn't even a real shonen series, referring to the power fantasy template of comics prominently featured in the legendary Shonen Jump magazine, the stuff my generation guzzled down en masse. They say it's not a shonen because it's more of a comedy, which is also true, but many also openly refer to Dandadan as a romance manga because a lot of the conflict comes from romantic situations. The introduction of the character Gigi is a perfect example of this. The romantic tension has been building between Momo and Okaroon. They've hinted at feelings for each other, and then suddenly here comes the stereotypically tall and cool character. Annie has a history of Momo. Wait, he was her first crush? And now he's living with them? It's set up perfectly to be this love triangle situation, and that's what you expect. You're waiting for Okaroon to transform at any moment and throw down of Gigi. But instead, they become best friends. There are still moments of self-doubt and jealousy within Okaroon, but they never feel like actual obstacles. They never last long. What you expect to turn adversarial instead just becomes heartwarming. Everyone remembers the first time they meet someone just as equally jazzed about their interests as they are. The sense of appreciation you feel when these two finally realize they finally have someone to geek out over aliens and conspiracy theories with, it's really an example of the emotional weight that Tatsu delivers Dandadan with. It's due to this focus on emotion that the monsters in Dandadan never truly feel threatening. You as the audience understand that the characters in the story are fearful and are in danger, but the feeling doesn't permeate. The stakes never feel that present. You aren't truly concerned about the safety of our team, but it doesn't feel like silly plot armor either. This is because the main conflict of Dandadan isn't violence. It's about love. The fights are just the window dressing to make you go ooh and ah at Tatsu's immense talent in the moments between tender encounters. The main struggle is for these characters to acknowledge their feelings for each other, and to themselves. Truly, the battles could pass as nothing more than metaphor if not for the extensive devastation and withering tolls they take on the team. Arcs almost always begin around the point where someone's questioning their feelings, or what someone else said or did, and how that relates to themselves and that person's feelings. Most of these conflicts are resolved and the violence concluded when Okarun and Momo are reunited and acknowledge something about themselves or each other. Genuinely, at points, it feels like a lot of conflicts in the series would end sooner if the participants were just physically closer to each other. As soon as the magic duo of Momo and Okarun are reunited, the threat stops existing, their union itself being a symbol of peace. In the action button review of the classic Japanese game Boku no Natsuyasumi, renowned internet white guy Tim Rogers recalls an older Japanese coworker saying how Tim playing Boku no Natsuyasumi would feel like a stranger reading their diary. Tim later in the video discusses how for decades, media has been filled with grown men mourning and grieving their youth and childhood dreams by putting words into and out of the mouths of fictional children. In a way, I think this informs as to why so many people find such deep and fulfilling connections to works like Dandadan. It's exercising the dread of the present while allowing a look back into endless variations of the past. This concept is not shown in isolated, of course, and is felt in every medium of media. Every brush stroke and inked word carries the weight of what is left unsaid, the weight of dreams unspoken and lives unlived. Since hearing that in Tim's video, my perception of media has been fundamentally altered, and now every dialogue line and every subtle action glows like a beacon to me. The light often obscured by the fog of language barriers, but the sentiment usually generally remains. And what is meant there? What caused the creator to form those words and those ideas for that character to express? What pain informs those decisions? As young men, as adolescents, we're constantly immersed in an identity war, not only with ourselves, but the world around us. When I say that the supernatural elements of Dandadan almost feel like they could be background decoration to the relationships of Momo and Okarun, it's because to a young me, disaster could also just be background noise if there was interpersonal turmoil happening as well. Friendships fray and split apart because of new romantic interests and relationships, or simply due to the passage of time. Routine hangouts and traditions become overlooked without much thought. When we're young, we're laser focused on the myth of ourselves and the path that lays in front of us. It's easy to overlook the same steps your peers are taking. It's easy to miss when they stumble or misstep. It's easy to forget how to empathize. The conflict of youth is rarely violence. We all remember the first time our best friend canceled plans on us because they got a girlfriend and made plans with them. We remember the promises at the start of the relationship of, nah, it won't be like that this time, only for them to stop sitting with us at the lunch table the very next week. We remember making those promises ourselves. The conflict of youth is rarely violence. The conflict is of love. My parents divorced when I was at a young age, and while I remained living with my father during the school year, I was mandated to spend my summer breaks with my mother, who moved into increasingly more remote locations as the years went by. One year, an apartment in Delaware. The next, a house somewhere past the edge of town in the sticks of North Carolina, next to neighbor Cletus and his wife, who were quiet and mostly kept to themselves. After that, it was a 2-story home in the middle of a Delaware cornfield, the only other people around being the migrant workers who sometimes slept in the equipment shed next door and would sheepishly knock on our door asking for Kool-Aid. Aside from that, nobody. Much like Okarun desperately shouting to the skies, hoping that aliens would come and save him from that loneliness, I yearned for that feeling of connection. My mother and her then boyfriend, now husband, both worked, so I was leaving my friends and family every year to go to the literal middle of nowhere, where I would sit alone for most of the day, with nothing to do and nobody to talk to. My mother did her best. I recognize that and I appreciate that, but your hindsight doesn't need to be 20/20 to see that that was no place for a kid. I had a capture card, and I don't remember how I convinced my parents to buy me a capture card in like 2005. I had a really crummy Gateway laptop that couldn't even handle recording video, but I still tried. I'd seen other people making videos online, and while I saw the fame and recognition some received, I also noticed the comments, the discussion, the community. I figured if I could find a way to record footage of Resident Evil 4 for Wii at a sweltering 12 frames per second, I could find someone to talk to, someone to have a connection with. Anyone. The vestiges of that desire still remain in this very video. The conflict of youth is rarely violence. During the writing and production process for this video, I fell rather ill and stumbled into a YouTube rabbit hole. People both older and younger than myself, dozens, hundreds, thousands of them, openly lamenting their lives and lack of social connection. Endless, countless faces bearing themselves to the digital unknown in hopes of connection. Sometime when you're bored, I want you to do me a favor and go to the search bar. Enter your age and numbers with the phrase, years old, no friends, and see how many results come up. This is ultimately what Dandadan is about navigating the minefield of social connections like it's a Persona game. Viewing these through the lens of Dandadan, I see Okarun and Momo in all of them. Viewing them through the lens of myself, I only see my reflection, the image slightly distorted. Loneliness has no age limit. When media has such a strong and poignant focus, it's important that the work as a whole feels cohesive, that these emotional bits aren't sharp and pokey and don't feel out of place. The ornamentation for such a theme, in this case being Tatsu's art, is perfectly rendered, and this blended amalgam of art and content helps deliver such emotional gut punches with the same ease as Okarun slamming feet first into an alien. In a shift from traditional manga publishing, Dandadan is first published digitally, not in a print medium like a magazine. This is especially interesting when you consider that Dandadan is created the old-fashioned way: ink, paper, blood, and sweat. There's a video online of Tatsu showing his drawing process, and though there are no translations available and I do not speak Japanese, it's captivating to watch him work. Wielding a fountain pen as his main weapon, he deftly darts and dashes around the pages, filling in spots here, adding lines and shading there. His hands move with a practiced intention like you only find in experienced masters, each stroke delivered with finality, certainty, and with confidence. As someone who's used a fountain pen, it's absolutely crazy to me to see Tatsu creating such high-caliber works with such speed and accuracy using such a tool. If you haven't used a fountain pen before, they're the Dark Souls of writing instruments. You should pick one up. Nobody seems to handwrite stuff anymore. I worry it's becoming a lost art. Also, it's ink. Fountain pens use ink. So how many panels have been ruined by him spilling pots of ink or his pen just blowing up? That happens sometimes. It's happened to everyone who's used a fountain pen before. They say if you dig deep enough, you can still find smudges of Bay State blue ink left over from the Plasticine age. The disconnect between Dandadan mainly being consumed digitally, yet made manually, the analog way, had me curious. I'm thankful to French publication L'Internaut for providing additional context and information, as well as Google Translate for allowing me to gather a passing understanding of the content. In an interview of Tatsu, he is asked about his layout process and how that plays to the mostly smartphone audience of Jump Plus, the online publication that Dandadan is presented through. His full answer reads, "I do not think too much about the fact that the story is read on smartphone. I always visualize a manga as a physical object. I like to take it in my hands, open it and see double pages. The great Osamu Tezuka said a long time ago in an interview, if the double pages do not die, the manga remains alive. It marked me. Today you can control the reading pace of a manga by intelligently positioning the double pages. Controlling reading speed is an essential key to manga, a power we don't have over real-time works like a movie or a cartoon. It is a specificity of the ninth art which guarantees the sustainability of the medium. I draw with great attention to the pace of reading in double pages. That's why I can't take smartphones into account. For me, it is not possible to rhythm a manga without using double pages." The art of Dandadan reigns supreme and blows away a lot of its peers with the way it conveys motion and impact. Flip through any of the published volumes and you'll be amazed by the quality and consistency of these wild two-page spreads that seem to leap off the page while simultaneously pulling you into their pulsing line work. Dandadan feels alive. Motion ripples through space with endless waves of tightly packed, short, singular direction lines, held together only by their perceived kinetic force and the thinnest of outlines. And these are everywhere. I know it's cliche to think that the two-page spreads often exemplify the better artistic parts of a manga, but even Osamu Tezuka, widely regarded as the wise grandfather of the medium, understood and appreciated their importance in the above quote. Due to the increased spatial canvas and the visceral impact of turning the pages and being confronted with a singular unified image, it allows Tatsu to go wild. And many of these larger images in Dandadan fill me with a genuine sense of wonder and amazement. In Chapter 90, the gang receives these nanomachine building blocks that will take the shape and form of whatever the person, or people, holding them imagines. So there's a chapter that has several of these spreads back to back to back as these kids successfully try to imagine a fucking automobile. And when they finally succeed halfway by making this house, truck, grasshopper hybrid thing, though it's physically the same size as previous iterations, it feels absolutely colossal. A titanic creation breaking the boundaries of the panel and careening out of the page toward you. I mentioned earlier how Tatsu is an absolute master at showing nonverbal communication, and it would be remiss of me not to mention the unparalleled comedy with which Tatsu draws faces. Dynamic and ever-evolving, Tatsu isn't afraid to shift from his art style and make his characters look outright absurd, if it's in service of conveying meaning or emotion. I mentioned Gigi as ever-expressive, but I mentioned that for him simply because he's the poster child of that. Silly faces are literally a character trait of Gigi's core design. In another life, he's probably the guy in charge of designing emojis. But every character in the cast does this, ranging from Peeny Weeny to Grandma. Nobody is safe from making silly faces at some point in Dandadan. No matter the context, you'll understand wholly and absolutely what Tatsu was trying to convey by drawing them that way. Another thing I haven't seen much in other mangas is that very often there will be panels or pages that are just lavish scenery, plastered with speech bubbles and these small, almost emojified versions of our cast's faces and their expressions. While obviously this type of panel also serves the purpose of filling space without having to draw full character poses and portraits, these sections flow effortlessly in Dandadan and are a pleasant palate cleanser, often presented promptly between more terse moments or discussions. Or hell, sometimes they're there just to dump a lot of info without having to draw everyone's outfits and take up space. We know what clothes they're wearing, spare us the visual bandwidth and get on with the dialogue, baby. In case you haven't mentally flagged it, I've mentioned food a lot and used food-related metaphors rather often in this video. In the cozy, comfy slice-of-life chapters that interlude the bigger battle arcs, there's almost always a meal involved. After the war, everyone gets together for a feast. And in typical storytelling fashion, a meal is an easy excuse to get everyone together to stage conversations and provide a launch board for other events. It works wonders for the pacing of the story, allowing time for both the audience and the characters to breathe. But there's another intended reason for these scenes in the amount of effort and detail that is put into them. Tatsu has said that the food scenes are important to the narrative and feeling of hope, and that he was deeply impressed by Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli's work, further saying, "The feeling that I want those who have worked hard to have consideration is on his mind when composing these scenes." It's true that cooking is a universal language. It's an indicator of peace and well-meaning intentions to share a meal with someone. It's a meeting ground for friends, and a core theme of Dandadan is friendship, and how furthering these relationships betters the lives of not only yourself, but the lives of others as well. So early during the creation of this video, before the idea had really taken any kind of shape, I reached out to one of my favorite creators on YouTube, Isekai Kitchen. Isekai, the culinary wizard behind the channel, has been replicating dishes from our favorite anime and manga series for about a year now, and she, like me, had a lot of thoughts about Dandadan. We spent several weeks discussing the series and collaborating on recipes for the foods displayed by Tatsu, as well as, of course, Okarune's Golden Ball. Ranging from fruits dipped and dyed in molten sugar to a frozen cream cheese and Oreo concoction, we tried many things, but I am not a confectioner and this is not a cooking channel. Ultimately, I failed. To find out how Isekai managed to actually pull this off, head over to her channel. Aside from Okarune's fat nut, you can see what else we cooked up, and I'll link her video and channel in the description below. During these feast chapters, a consistent is Granny standing over an ever-growing field of open mouths and telling them to eat their fill. That's how I see Isekai, but much younger and much nicer, of course. Loneliness has no age limit, but it's often much harder to find at a crowded dinner table. If loneliness is the spiritual enemy of the gang, what about the actual physical big bads that send the crew into a panic? The monsters of Dandadan are truly one of the more memorable parts of the series, with obvious and intricate care and thought put into their designs and circumstances. When orchestrating his roster of monsters, Tatsu pulled not only from traditional Japanese mythology, but also Western conspiracy theories and even internet memery and shenanigans as well. While some of these monsters are originally founded in folklore and legends of eras past, a majority of the commonly known yokai are born from the pens of artists. Artist Toriyama Seiken is thought to have created about 85 yokai in his Edo period book series, Hyakkyaggyo, or Night Parade of 100 Demons. This is where the bulk of the commonly recognized yokai come from. Take for example the series icon Turbo Granny. Her counterpart in our real-life meat space is much less menacing. Her whole shtick is that if you drive down her haunted tunnel, she's gonna go really, really, really fast to catch up to your car and knock on your window. When you turn to the window out of confusion, curiosity, or a mixture of both, she just grins at you. You're supposed to be terrified, and then she just disappears. That's all. Nothing malicious, nothing about gobbling schlongs, suckling teats, stealing golden testicles. There's not even an everlasting curse. This also means that Tatsu fabricated the sub-backstory she's given, about how she often appears as a benevolent spirit coming to the aid of women in need of assistance. It's just an extra layer of world building. Whether necessary is up to you. The Serpoians, on the other hand, whew, they come from deep in United States conspiratorial lore, beginning with leaked government emails alleging that the US has long been in contact with an intelligent society from the planet Serpo, a planet in the Zeta Reticuli star system. This Project Serpo alleges that we've had peaceful relations with these aliens for a long time, to the degree that Earthlings have allegedly visited and even taken up residence on planet Serpo. Serpo is apparently a planet of around 650,000 inhabitants, with an atmosphere not too unlike our own, though the planet itself is supposedly much smaller. Through all of my research on planet Serpo and the Serpoians, I could find absolutely no mention of a J. Crew or even an Old Navy, where the Serpoians would presumably source their business casual attire. This implies that either button-down shirts and slacks eventually evolved completely independently of humankind, or the Serpoians were so impressed with our immaculately tailored and tucked garments that they decided those were the things they would take back to their culture. Likewise, the second foe the group encounters, the Flatwoods Monster, also comes from US lore. In September of 1942 in Braxton County, West Virginia, much like the opening of a bad detective novel, 3 boys and a National Guardsman followed a light falling from the sky into the nearby woods. It's there they discovered the Flatwoods Monster, who turned and chased them out of the forest. Locals have lovingly named the monster Braxy, and there's even a museum. I don't know where the sumo wrestler aspect of its Dandadan counterpart came from, though. Genuinely, no clue. It's funny, though. The evil eye that Gigi encounters and then says, sure, to being possessed by, there's evil eyes in countless cultures around the world, usually as a generic term for a great evil or mysterious force. Much like the Flatwoods Monster, Tatsu changed him up a bit and made him a sports star who attacks using a soccer ball made of tormented souls. Again, it's sick and all, but no clue where that part came from. Back to the yokai, however, we have the Slit-Mouthed Woman, who is one of the better-known examples of a modern yokai. Originally, sightings began in the Gifu Prefecture in 1978, and sightings were pretty sparse until the story was picked up by a radio station in January of the following year. Panic spread through the country, and sightings were reported everywhere of a woman in a mask carrying a big-ass kitchen knife. As the story goes, she asks you if you think she's pretty, though no matter which way you answer, it's already too late. By August of the same year, the sightings had stopped forever, and she entered the folklore lexicon. However, my probable favorite yokai has to be Acrobatic Silky, who's also the newest. You see, Acrobat Silky is legitimately from a creepypasta on 2chan. I find that hilarious. Yeah, I'm panicking and scared for my life because of the 4chan monster. Ridiculous! Yet, that's only half the reason that Acrobat Silky is my favorite. The other part of that feeling comes from the absolute gut punch that Dandadan delivers when giving her backstory. The manga's version of events will leave you fatally wounded, but the anime's delivery will leave you empty. It's a rare occasion, and one that should be widely and openly celebrated, when a beloved manga receives an anime adaptation that lives up to the source material. The soul-shattering delivery of Acrobat Silky, truly one of the most beautiful and devastating episodes of anything I've seen ever, shows that the Dandadan anime is no exception and drips passion and talent from every frame, elevating Tatsu's masterpiece into something brilliant and revolutionary. The Dandadan anime wears its heart on its sleeve and declares shamelessly that the team working on it adored the series, and more importantly, they understand it. From Studio Science Saru, known for such animations as Scott Pilgrim Takes Off and the food chain episode of Adventure Time? Alright. The animation was announced in November 2023 to electric anticipation, sweeping up the eager yearning from everyone who had read even the first few pages of the series. It was around this time, having read the first 2 volumes, that I began preaching Dandadan to people. This was around the time that the hype for Dune and Dune 2 was nearing its peak, and my friends would mention Dune and I would go, oh, you know they have the worm in Dandadan. And they'd go, what's Dandadan? And I'd go, it's the series I've been telling you to check out for the past 2 months. And they'd go, oh. While waiting for the eventual bombastic release of the anime, we are treated to the opening song, Otonoke, by the duo Creepy Nuts, formerly of Mashal opening Bling Bang Bang Born fame. Grab some DEET and coat your cochleas, baby, because this is an undeniable earworm. Chanting the series title in time with the beat, frontman R. Shite launches into his frantic melodic flow, while instrumentalist and beatmaker DJ Matsunaga weaves a captivating bop that I frequently find myself throwing my ass in a circle to. I find most series openings and endings are filler, often a slideshow of characters in various poses or just walking somewhere. Usually set to high-octane riffs and lead guitar, they're meant to hype up and refamiliarize the viewer before or after the action ends. For Dandadan, this isn't the case. On their own, CreepyNuts' Otonoke and the opening sequence by Science Saru are masterpieces, but fused together they become a memorable piece of art that really shows what can be achieved in that opening 90 seconds. The opening is this visual orgy of colors and styles all shifting and blending together in a whirlwind of stimulus, cut in time to the infectious energy and beat of the song, and it's so fucking cool! Opening panels call back to the volume covers of the collected Tonkabon issues, with Science Saru unafraid of bouncing between color palettes to keep your attention, with brilliantly paced cuts, inversions, and transitions. The proper music video for the full Otonoke song by CreepyNuts is also phenomenal, displaying the budding and blooming creativity of the duo that never fails to impress. It's my sincere belief, and thus worry, that the opening for Season 1 will be hard to top whenever Season 2 releases later this year. But I also hope that CreepyNuts is still involved and delivers another opus onto us. The anime itself is a lovingly faithful adaptation of the source material, often using exact framing and stylization from the manga, feeling like its still beating soul has been ripped from the page and given life. A recent trend in anime is that the first several episodes are sometimes edited together into a compilation film that's shown in theaters to reach a wider audience and allow a more cinematic experience for fans. Leading up to the streaming release of Dandadan, this compilation film was shown in theaters worldwide, and often the film was accompanied by interviews of Tatsu or members of the animation staff. In an interview with Anime News Network, Season 1 director Fuga Yamashiro, who I'm pleased to say will also be at the helm for Season 2, spoke with Momo's voice actress Shion Wakayama, and the two discussed their thoughts and feelings regarding the anime. From these interviews, you can plainly tell that the duo are deeply passionate about their work on Dandadan, and it's obvious they get it. Both of them are asked what first drew them to the project, and both answer that it was the comedy most of all, and how it blends that together with the elements of action and romance to form a truly unique and powerful project. Yamashiro talks about the challenge of adapting it to the new medium, how one of his most challenging scenes and proudest accomplishment is a section of the first episode, saying, "It's from episode 1 where Okarun finds Turbo Granny, from that scene to when it cuts to commercial. It was the most successful and best scene, in my opinion, within the first 3 episodes. Why? It was because it was very difficult, after all. There are cutbacks to Momo and Okarun, so there's a focus on both. There couldn't be one person who had more focus than the other. I thought of both of them as protagonists. Both of them have to carry the emotional weight of the show. So I asked myself, how do I make sure to give them both weight? But they both overcome it. They're both in danger, but the balance. I was really careful on how to depict that. In the manga, it's showcased a little differently. It was really like my idea for this animation, which was really hard. I think the animation is godlike. That's why I'm so dedicated to the show, and this is why I will not be cursed by it. I feel tacky about reading out full quotes, but they're important here as it shows that the people working on bringing Dandadan to life fully understand the necessity of the relationship between Momo and Okarun being the focus. They fully understood the emotional weight and significance of their work and how the audience would relate to that, and also how they would be persecuted if they failed to hit the mark. It is with deep gratitude that I say I feel they have nothing to worry about. Miss Wakayama also discussed how she felt the pressure in bringing Momo's awesomeness through in her vocal performance, saying, "I think I had a lot of firsts in episode 3. I did a lot of new things and had a lot of challenges, and I want to speak about them. Episode 3 is a full-on 20-something minute battle, which was a first for me. That was a huge challenge. But also, in episode 2, she's thrown against the wall, and she's so tattered and torn, but she still has to speak this awesome dialogue. So that was a first for me. I was really like, okay, so how do I make sure that I speak in an awesome way? But then she's also tattered and broken. So I really practiced at home. Is it this way, or is it this way? I tried different things, but I think everything was a challenge. But I think the battle scenes or the speaking in the battle scenes were especially challenging. If you're a fan of the anime, I would advise you to check out the full interview, as it's full of little tidbits and anecdotes that I couldn't find a way to shoehorn into this video. Such as how the violent red flashes and streaks when Okarun transforms are an allusion to the colors of Ultraman, since Tatsu is apparently a really big Ultraman fan. The first season of the anime concludes roughly at the beginning of volume 5 of the manga, or around chapter 34. Spread across 11 episodes, the anime never feels like it dips in quality or momentum. Unfortunately, the anime does do something that ultimately is my only real gripe with the series. The last half of the final episode involves Momo going to a hot springs bath to try and relax after all the shit she's been through lately, while Okarun and Gigi break down the walls of Gigi's house in order to find the load-bearing wall yokai. However, Momo is not alone at the bath, and a group of creepy naked men enter the water, converging on her. The semi-final scene of Season 1 is Momo being grabbed and forced underwater by her assailants, and I cannot for the life of me understand what the hell they were thinking ending the season on that note. Is this supposed to be a cliffhanger? Are we supposed to be in months-long suspense about what's happening and if Momo's okay? It makes me immediately think about Tatsu saying that Momo is Superman, and that the staff apparently thought, "Is Superman about to get raped?" was a good cliffhanger and an appropriate note to end things on. I disagree. Backtracking a bit to chapter/episode 1, the Serpoian assault on Momo at least has some vague sort of lore reasoning. Turbo Granny is said to appear to women in distress, and Okarun hearing Momo's cries of despair through the phone would allow Turbo Granny to overhear that, instigating her teleporting through the phone and coming to her aid. Listen, I still don't think that's the best way to go about that sort of thing, but whatever. You can at least tell there was some thought and reasoning put into these scenes by Tatsu. Inversely, this just isn't the case with the Hot Springs assault. In the manga, this is never brought up again after the fact. Momo never acknowledges, never brings it up to other characters, never even mentions what happened in her own internal monologue. I understand that Japan has a different culture and approach towards sexual crimes and violations, but for a series that focuses so much on the emotions, thoughts, and experiences of a teenage girl, it doesn't give nearly enough weight to what would definitely be a very important event. As mentioned, Fuga Yamashiro is returning as the director for Season 2 of Dandadan, and I'm infinitely curious, though wary of course, as to how the anime is going to follow up and continue that scene. I would love to be proven wrong, by the way. In this case, it would bring me deep satisfaction if Studio Science Saru gave this event the proper attention it deserves, and delivers it in a way that demonstrates they understand the gravitas of the situation. In another interview with the French publication L'Internaut, Shihei Lin was asked about the very dark themes of rape and murder in Dandadan, as well as Spy X Family and Chainsaw Man, since he's additionally responsible for overseeing those series. The context of the interview question is specifically in the context of the online Jump Plus publication versus the traditional print medium of Weekly Jump, but his answer still applies to the whole of Dandadan. What concerns us above all is this interesting for our readers? Will they be caught up in the story? We also try not to limit our vision of the readers to a certain group. For us, potential readers are all the people who want to immerse themselves in a narrative, a new world, people who love pop culture in general, whether they're fans of cinema, whether they're fans of world TV, or even K-pop after all. I find the K-pop remark a little out of left field there, and I'm personally offended a bit. So what if I have comprehensive knowledge of the BTS discography? At least I didn't think raping Superman was a good cliffhanger. After all this time, after everything we've talked about, you're probably asking yourself, what the hell does Dandadan even mean? That's a good question. I don't have an answer. During a few points in the story, sound effects are labeled as Dan-Dan or Danda, and it almost feels like they want the reader to go, oh, that's almost it. They almost said the word. But the full word Dandadan itself doesn't make an appearance until the very final panel of chapter 163, and so far it hasn't been elaborated upon at all. According to the ever-decreasing reliability of the internet, Danda traditionally refers to a divine scepter in Hindu mythology, symbolizing authority and power. This has led many to believe it refers to an almighty weapon that will eventually make an appearance. Others, like Reddit user SO131, theorize that it could be something similar to gradual appreciation and thankfulness. Though in the comments of that same post, someone points out that the Japanese Volume 3 promotional cover states it stands for Ghost Tales, Strange Tales, and Recounting Tales. To me, Dandadan means hope. It is a reminder that even in the darkest times, you only need to reach out a hand and find a friend. That despite your individual quirks, interest, or weirdness, there's a group out there just waiting to find you and welcome you with open arms. You've stuck with me this long, so I say to you, the viewer, welcome. As long as I am here, you will never be alone. For Dandadan, the future is bright. The second season of the anime is set to release in July of this year, 2025, and the publication of the manga shows no signs of slowing down or coming to an end anytime soon. The story of Momo and Okarun, the story of love, remains unwritten. If this is an example of what the future of the shonen genre looks like, I think we're in good hands. To close with a quote from Yukinobu Tatsu, "Everything I draw is done with the hope that the reader will enjoy it. The word entertainment is constantly on my mind as I work. I say with confidence that I believe Tatsu has achieved this spectacularly, and I say with genuine excitement that I cannot wait to see what he comes up with next. Dandadan is available to read for free online via the Jump Plus website and app, and print volumes are being released in the States by Viz Media. At time of writing, the anime is available through the Crunchyroll or Netflix streaming services. If you're considering picking up the volumes, I highly recommend my own personal favorite online bookstore, Read Left Manga, available at rlmanga.com. They're also fans of Dandadan, and were kind enough to order a restock of volumes in anticipation for when this video goes online. Support small business, yo! I hope you join me in wishing continued health and success to Yukinobu Tatsu, Shihei Lin, Science Saru, and the rest of the extensive staff behind the miracle that is Dandadan. The future is brighter, together. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. So, I'm thinking for, the thumbnail, it's gonna be, the panel of, Peeny Weeny, where he's like, huh. And then, on one side, it's gonna be like, his name's Peeny Weeny! And then on the other side, it's gonna be like, milk is his blood!
No.